Welcome back to PUBCAST. We're here at the Redwood. Thanks very much to the guys for hosting us yet again. We've got the guys here in the background coming to see us. I'm with my co-host, Tony Cascarino, the legend himself. We've got a very, very special guest for you today. It's an ex-teammate of mine, a guy I absolutely love, a guy that put fear into defenders whenever he played, and everywhere he went, he scored goals, and everyone absolutely loved him because he gave more than 110%, socks down, shirts out, and defenders were scared, but he was top man on and off the field. Villa, West Brom, Coventry legend, Garry Thompson. Give him a round of applause, guys.
Thank you. I'm starting to blush up.
Garry,
what a build-up.
It is so brilliant to see you. I mean, it's great when you play with teammates.
Probably just talking about me then for a minute.
I wasn't lucky enough to play with you, Kaz, but the big man here, we had a great time because I think when you came to Palace that year, it was the FA Cup year. We played against Man United in that replay, beat Liverpool in the semi-final. And then the year after was your first full season. We finished third in the top flight. We won the Zenith Data Systems final at Wembley. You know, real special. The best season, arguably, that Palace have ever had, will ever had. The only trophy we've ever won, and did that with you. But out of St Kitts, Dad was an athlete. Mum was a top tennis player. Brothers played, 3 brothers, 1 sister. Really from a sporting family. And it all started at Coventry. You're a Midlands boy. Coventry, Jimmy Hill.
Yeah, started at Coventry. Coventry had a kid called Paul Dyson, and me and Paul Dyson went to the same school together. So Paul used to beat me up as a 10, 11-year-old, and we go to the same school, Bramwood Secondary, and we only went there because Bob Latchford, who played, and the Stewart brothers were runners. So I went to that school because it was a sporting school. Anyway, Paul and myself go through the years, as it were, and Coventry take Paul in the 3rd year, and they watch us play for the district and the county and all that, but they never ever picked myself and a lad called Malcolm Percival. So in the end, they say to Paul one day, "You got any good mates?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, Tomo and Percy." So we both go down. So we get our trial on the back of Paul Dyson. They like what they see. Percy trains for 3 or 4 days, gets up one day, he goes, "I'm not having any of this." And what we on about is that we train in the morning, play football all day, we have food, play football, it's great. "I'm not doing this," he says, "I'm not being told what to do." So he went off and he ended up becoming a stripper in Amsterdam. So worked out for him, really.
How'd you do?
So I ended up just playing football. I left school, I was still at school, I ended up playing in reserves at 15. I played in this game, it was first team versus reserve curtain raiser. I'm sitting on the bench and I'm 15 years of age, and Bert Edwards goes to me about 20 minutes ago. Ernie Hunt and all of them are playing. He says, "Big man," he says, "You got a goal in you?" 15 years of age. "Of course I've got a goal in me, get me on the pitch." Puts me on the pitch. Now, John's played with me, so he knows this is a very unusual thing, but I picked the ball up, danced between 2 players, smashed it in the back of the goal. Jimmy Hill's doing it on the mic, and he's talking about players coming on and off and that, and he goes, "What a wonderful goal from, who's that? Thompson, young Thompson." So anyway, I get loads of love. This is on the Tuesday. On the Saturday, on the Friday, the centre forward at Coventry, Alan Robinson, the reserve centre forward, got injured. And he ended up finishing his career through it. But I'd made my debut at 15 years of age against Aston Villa, and that was me off and running.
Wow. And the club you supported, the Villa. And now, there's a few characters, because you mentioned Jimmy.
Yeah.
You had Mark Haitley, you know, you played alongside as well. Brian Kilcline, he would have been there, would he?
Killer came after.
Killer came after. Yeah. So you've had, Coventry have had some big players over the years, haven't they? And some very inspirational people in football.
Coventry City, it was perfect for myself because it was a place where they scoured and got good young talent up and down the country. They lost Kevin Keegan, and Chrissy Waddle was a young kid with us at the same time at Coventry. Wow. And for some reason, Gary Bannister, myself, Paul Dyson, we were all signed on, but they didn't sign Chrissy Waddle. And I never saw Chris again until he was 19, playing for the team in Newcastle, the local side. Yeah. And then he went off to play for Newcastle and obviously became a legend. But Coventry were very good because they scouted brilliantly, brought in a load of players. Haitley was there. Obviously myself, a kid called Tommy English, who was possibly the best finisher out of all of us. Really? Danny Thomas came through, Andy Blair, I think Les Seeley, Jimmy Blythe was the goalkeeper. We had a team, we ended up playing in the semi-final of the League Cup, and we beat, we were 2-0 down, and then we won 3-2. I'd scored an own goal, but then I got 2 to reduce the balance. But we got beat at West Ham, 2-1, but we should have got to Wembley that year. If we'd have got to Wembley, Jimmy Hill wouldn't have lost an awful lot of money. He lost a lot in America, but he needed the cup final. Didn't happen, and within a year, Dave Sexton had come in, and then I'd gone. But we had a crew, we had a good group of players.
So you broke your leg in 3 places?
Yeah.
Early on. How early was that?
I would be 18.
Wow.
And I'd be
And at the time, they wanted to put pins in it. So if you'd have had pins in there, that would have been career done.
Yeah. I ended up. I played against Aston Villa on the Wednesday night. Now Villa's my team, so I'll get me dad and his mates about 20 tickets. So we play in Aston Villa, and it's a midweek game. Like in them days, they used to do. Well, Cass will tell you the free kick, the corner that come over near post, flick on, someone come in the back post. They take the corner as he's coming across. Alan Evans on marking, but it looks like we're going to clear the ball. So I think I'll have it on my toes. So I start going. They flick it on. Evo heads it in. So I go in and I go to apologise and say to the lads, "Look, lads, I'm really sorry, my mistake." As I walk through the door, Jim Holton grabs me and pushes me up the wall. And starts hammering me. And I went to Gordon Milne, the gaffer, and he's right. It's all down to you. Go out the second half. I get the equaliser. So obviously I'm taking loads of abuse from me old man and his mates and everybody. I come off the pitch and then as per usual I went, "Well lads, put food back on your table," and they ripped me again. And that's when I learned to shut my mouth, because all the senior players would ever do was slaughter you. That was on the Wednesday, day off on the Thursday. Friday morning we've ended up going in, and we was out in the FA Cup, so we knew Friday you got the weekend off, it's a running day. So as we come in, I've got myself a new Capri and all that, just driving in a Capri looking at nuts. So I think, well, it's going to be running day. But me digs lady had said to me, "Do you want a breakfast?" No, it's going to be running. She talked me into having bacon and eggs. So as I drive in, there's no cones or anything. Strange, interesting. So I decided to have a little five-a-side and then a big match. So the match is going to be for an hour. They don't have enough players, so this young kid comes across, one of the trialists. He's a Scouse lad, lovely kid, and he was a left-back, a bit like Stuart Pearce type, but he was playing centre-half. Ball gets played down the channel, I'm chasing the ball. This is basically a finishing session so you can all have the weekend off. I'm chasing the ball, I see him coming, and I think I'll just touch it past him. I touch the ball past him. Next thing, I'm on the floor, and Jim Holton's leaning over me going, "Don't look at your leg." So you look at your leg, don't you? Then I faint. They take me to the hospital. I'm in the hospital, but they can't operate because I've had breakfast, so they have to wait 3 or 4 hours, which is possibly what saved my career. They decided they were going to put pins in it because he was snapped in 3 places, the top and 2 places by my ankle. So basically, you can imagine, my leg is over. And they're on, "We've got to pin it. This young doctor comes in, sees what's happening, keeps arguing the toss with everybody and says, "No, you can't do it." And he basically fought and saved my career. He ended up, I don't know what they did, but they pushed it all together. I had plaster of Paris, I was out for 11 and a half months, came back, and that's when I started having my socks around my ankles, because I played the game, first game for the youth team, and we played this game, and my legs were just killing me. Everything was too tight. I couldn't have anything around my legs, and that it was driving me mad. And so I loosened everything off, took the shin pads off, because I thought, well, if I'm going to break my leg again, I'm going to break my leg again. Sounds really tough in that, but I'm a scaredy cat. But I played like that, and then I just carried on playing like that, and people used to think I was fearsome and aggressive and nasty, and so I just played up to it. Works out right.
Well, yeah, because you were one of those guys, when I watched you on TV, when you saw you, you did look like Mr. Angry, you were Mr. Tough, socks down, shirt out.
Yeah.
But, having got to know you and played with you, you're a pussycat, really.
I am one of the nicest men in the world. I mean, my daughter, my little princess, takes liberties with me. My son does, my grandkids do, But when I go to play, I'm running around. It's business time, and I want to play football, and I want to fight, and I want to score goals and be aggressive, and I want people to abuse me, but I'm going to score a goal. I love being part of it. So obviously I looked at it, and some of my mates now who I work with, they're big Albion fans, and they say, "You used to scare me to death." They'd watch me and think I was so aggressive, but off the pitch, I am quite an easygoing geezer.
But I was going to say on that, but you've played alongside Haitley, who was a real tough cookie, Cyril. Yeah. Big Cyril could look after himself. I mean, I saw Cyril because he replaced me at Villa Park. He took off his shirt. I couldn't believe what a condition Cyril was in. It was literally 6-pack. It was like a 12-pack. Yeah. Big Cyril. And you played with some real toughies as well.
I mean, Cyril didn't do any weights. When I broke my leg and I was out for 11 months, they had me doing a weight programme every day. I was doing weights and that. When I go to West Brom and Steve walks in, Steve's got the stone in his shoe, he just comes in, and he's the most languid, relaxed man in the world. But he takes his top off and he's just built. Someone just carved him out. He's absolutely... I mean, a beautiful body. I mean, I look at it like a beautiful body.
Because 158 games, 49 goals for Cough, great start. Then you get that move to Villa and you meet your hero, Cyril Regis. Yeah. And so Cyril Regis was one of the 3 degrees, Brendan Batson, Laurie Cunningham. Tell us about that time, because they're pioneers.
Remy Moses as well, wasn't it? Remy?
Yeah,
sort of... Yeah.
Well, Ron Atkinson had just gone to Man United, and he took Brian Robson and Remy Moses. So the heart of the team had gone, as it were. Like, so I think they brought in Martin Jol and Romeo Zondervan. So a few months later, down the road, like, they decided to sign me. I get bullied into signing, and I go and sign, and then I think, well, at least Cyril Regis is here. Like, as a kid at Coventry, we played the Albion 3 or 4 times in the FA Cup, and I remember I was just on the fringes of the first team. I watched Cyril warm up and Laurie, and they just glided across the pitch. It was a frosty day, like, and I just see them gliding across the pitch. Brendan was a good footballer as well, and that's when they got the 3 Degrees nickname and that. But what good footballers! And like, so when I got the chance to go, Laurie had gone to Real Madrid already. Brendan was injured, so he's in and out of the team. But C was and still is my hero because he was the nicest man in the world. I have a tendency to be a bit of a lunatic at times, and he'd calm me down. And he'd always be like, "Big man, just chill." So in the heat of the game, when I'm like, I want to fight people, I'm aggressive, he'd be like, just relax, take a breath, big man, relax, get hold of it, bring people in. And he coached me, or coached me, should I say, through 18 months at West Brom, which I think got me the rest of my career because he calmed me down. Because there is a time for extreme violence and there's a time to be sensible. And C sort of taught me the difference. I couldn't work it out before that.
Would that be a bit of Les as well? I mean, Les was quite calm, wasn't he? He's a centre forward, Les Ferdinand.
The best centre forward.
You played with him at QPR, yeah?
I played with Les at QPR, and I remember when I went to QPR, I went from Crystal Palace, and Jerry Francis, who I'd known as a kid at Coventry, Jerry went to me, I've got this centre forward, I ain't too sure about him, he looks like he's sold the jerseys, he's always injured, he's a little bit soft and all that. He said, I want you to come in, and he says, you're not going to play loads of games, but just be a centre forward. So I go in, I do my training and all that, and I'm trying to figure out which kid it is. Because if you remember at the time, like Bradley Allen was there and Les Ferdinand.
Phil Goddard, Paul Goddard around
No, they'd gone before by that.
Yeah. Did you play Paul Parker? And
no, Parks has gone.
Parks has gone.
Well, I played with one of the most gifted players at QPR. I watched him train and play, and I thought, this kid's fantastic, Roy Wegley. Now, I watched Roy play, and I'm thinking, he must mean him. But Roy Wegley was just superb. Everything about him, like a good touch and good ability, but he used to beat himself up. If he made a mistake, he'd beat himself up. In the end, I see this other kid who's built like me, but he's probably better looking. And like,
No way.
I know, yeah, it's touch and go. There's not a lot between it. But I watched this kid play. So about 3 weeks into it, Frank Sibley calls me in. He says, "How you liking it, big man?" I said, "Yeah, it's nice." He says, "What do you think?" Now, bearing in mind, we've got Ray Wilkins, Alan McDonald, David Bardsley, Simon Barker. We've got Andy Sinton. We've got a proper team. And he says, "What do you think?" I says, "Yeah, it's not too bad." I said, "But you know that kid you thought was a softie and he's no good player and all that?" He went, "Yeah." I says, "He can do everything I can do." I'm 30, by the way. He can do everything I can do, but better. And like when you're younger, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my place. I looked at that kid and I just went, he's just different class. That was Les Ferdinand. He was one of the best centre forwards. Cyril would probably be the best one I ever played with, but Les Ferdinand's very close.
Even then. So, I mean, West Brom, 105 games and 45 goals. Absolutely fantastic, incredible. You were the top striker, but amazingly, at that time, you were the lowest paid player on the team. I mean, what was that all about?
I went from Coventry were going to go bankrupt, and we didn't know this as players. A year before, they turned down $750 from Arsenal and £1 million from Leeds. Then the bottom drops out of the market. Fast forward 15 months on, Jim Hill rings me, basically says, get yourself down to West Brom, they'll look after you. The manager at West Brom was my old coach, Ron Wiley. I go down, Ron bullies me into signing a contract. So I end up signing this contract on £400 a week with a £50 appearance and 25 grand signing on. And I'm like, well, I ain't going to sign for that. And so in the end, I'm lying and making excuses. I don't want to sign this contract. And Ron sits there.
What year is this?
This
Garry?
is 83.
83, right.
So he basically says, look, there's a contract, get it signed. And I went, well, yeah, Ron, I would sign, but Coventry owe me £10,000. If it wasn't for that, I'd sign. So he rings Jimmy Hill. Jimmy Hill gets back on the phone. Jimmy Hill's like, are we arguing over £10,000? I went, well, you owe me £10,000. Why? I've never asked for a transfer. Why would I leave? He says, 10 grand. He says, £10,000. And he kept going, £10,000, £10,000. He said, like, 40p in the pound tax, so that's £6,000, isn't it? So we're arguing over £6,000. So I'm like, well, yeah, but he says £6,000. He says, right, he says, knowing you the way you are. In them days, we was all rude boys, so we had the tonic suits, we had the hats, we all the gear. He says, by the time you bought yourself some silly gear and that, you and your mate Tom and Village, he says, got yourself another car. He says, yeah, like £4 grand, isn't it? £4,000. He says, we're arguing over £4,000. And I'm like, where are you going with this? He says, your baby, you got a baby on the way as well, like, he says, you get some baby stuff and all that, but she's got a few dresses and frocks and the prams and all that. He said, before you know it, it's £2,000. We were arguing over £2,000. We give you £2,000. How's that sound? I was like, sounds like £2,000. Don't sound like what I'm going to sign for. He goes, I'll get Ron on the phone. Ron Wiley comes in, and that £2,000 or £2,500 went down to 1,500 quid. He went, right, negotiated with the chairman, we'll give you 1,500 quid. And I was like, you are? So, in the end, he put the contract down in front of me. He's gone, so imagine that's the contract. So he's put it down. He said, right, get that contract signed. He says, you've got 10 minutes, otherwise you can clear off. So I sit there, and my words are, the Scotch twat. And that's being nice. So if he thinks I'm going to get bullied into signing a contract, he can kiss my black ass. So this has gone on for a little bit. So that's 10 minutes. 9 minutes I've gone, well, there's 25 grand signing on for about £450 a week. Yeah. 6 minutes I signed a contract. But the good thing was I played with Cyril Regis. I played with...
Anna McAnally as well.
Matt Macca was at Villa, yeah. But I played with Cyril, and the best fullback I ever played with, Brendan was injured a lot, Clive Whitehead, Derek Statham, who for me was one of the best players I ever played with. Stevie Hunt was there, Garry Owen, who was one of the most gifted players, Martin Yall, who was one of the filthiest players I ever trained with, because he'd top you in training, Johnny.
Really?
Oh, didn't mess. Lovely kid.
He looked quite a tough guy as a manager. I didn't see him as a player.
Oh, yeah, but...
Got to ask you, because this is obviously pre-agents.
Yes.
A lot of players of our era, Garry, didn't really have agents. You ended up sitting in front of a chairman or a CEO at a football club, and you're negotiating with these people who are clearly trying to intimidate you, like you've experienced.
Yeah. I mean, the years we was coming through, we always told, go to the senior players, and they would they'd give you a good stare. So I'd speak to Tommy Hutchison or Terry Gareth or one of them, and they'd say, well, big man, you should be earning this, blah, blah, blah. But by the time I go to West Brom, Ron Wiley, who's known me since I was 14 at Coventry, he then proceeds to, there's no agents anyway, he just puts a contract in front of me, get that signed. So in the end, I signed. But to be fair, even though the money wasn't great, it was a little bit of a rise, but I ended up playing with some great players, and like I say, the likes of Garry Owen and people like that. We had a fantastic team at West Brom. If you look at that team should have done an awful lot better. I'm the top scorer for 2.5 years, score goals for fun, but I am playing with Cyril Regis, and he takes a lot of heat off me, and he helps me play, he helps me develop, learn the game. So Cyril gets sold to Coventry. Now I'm top scorer 2 years running, season ends, so I go to Johnny Giles. I go to with the secretary. I need a meeting with the manager. I'm the lowest paid player in the club, myself and Nicky Cross. He says, okay, I'll arrange a meeting. Arrange the meeting on a Wednesday. So I go in to see him. As I'm on my way, Mrs. drops me off, she's going to do some shopping. We stop at a newspaper shop, get the paper, back of the paper, Arsenal in for Thompson. It's like, happy days. So I got there, I sit down, Johnny Giles comes in, and I got the newspaper like that. Anyway, you can put that down. So I put it down, he says, what do you want? I went, well, I've been top scorer for 2.5 years. I said, I want to be brought more into line with the other players. I know C was on £2,000 a week. I don't expect to be given £2,000 a week, but I expect to be brought more into line. Looks me in the eye, he says, how do you fancy Switzerland? And I was like, yeah, Switzerland. He says, look, there's an agent. Get yourself to Potter's Bar, Tommy Lawrence. He says, they'll take you over there, look after you. Take the missus and the nipper. Anyway, we go over to Switzerland, like, Servette of Geneva. So we go over there, Geneva, shall I say, is the most beautiful place. I mean, I look at the ground, everything's nice. They give me an apartment, they give me 2 cars. It works out to $112,000 a year, tax-free, which in them days you're looking at 85. It's good money. Flights home for the missus, you can bring a family over. I mean, the apartment was as big as my house. So I'm like, I don't want to sign here, like 2-year contract, don't want to sign. But if I get this kind of money, I can look after my mum and dad and get a house, I can do this, I can do that. So in the end, I'm going to have to sign a contract. We have a big dinner on the night, so I'm sitting at the table, my little lad's under the table messing about, and West Indian families, if you don't speak to your mum every 2-3 days, they will find you. And she will say, I could be dead, you haven't rang me. So anyway, so I'm sitting there, and this geezer, the waiter picks the phone up, and he keeps looking over at me, so I think, it's the old lady. She goes, Mr. Thompson, phone call. So I go over, pick the phone up. So I go, you got me then? It's Sid Lucas, the Albion chairman. So he says, Tomo, I've just heard, he said, I found out what's happening. He says, those robbing bastards, God knows. He said, I've just found out who's put this deal up. Apparently the money was put up by Fiorentina. I was supposed to go to Servette for a year and then go off to Italy. So I went, well, Mr. Lucas, what's the problem with that? Yeah, I'm not having that. He says, they've agreed a fee, they're trying to sell you one to someone else. I'm not having it. He says, I've asked for another 50 grand. And I went, you can't do that. You've agreed a fee. So I went, lying through my teeth, I'll give you the 50 grand out of my own pocket. He put the phone down. Come back, sit at the table, wife knows something's up. We go back to the room after, I tell her what's happening, go downstairs next morning. His deal's not off, but they're trying to resurrect it. I fly back to the Albion, or back to England, go into the Albion next day for training, and as I drive in, Johnny Giles comes out and he goes, clear off, or words to that effect. And I'm like, you are? I didn't know. On the money they got for me, they'd signed Crooks and Verardi. So now I've got nowhere to go. Now Arsenal come in for me again, but they dropped out the bidding at 300 grand. QPR was in, Leeds was in. There was about 5 or 6 clubs after me, like Chelsea. I end up meeting the Chelsea chairman, Mr. Bates, me and my missus, and we sit there, and he walks into the boardroom at the Albion, and he gets a wine out, and he says to me, chairman, right, get out. So I said, Lucas just scurries off. So I'm like, he starts talking to me, but in the conversation, never mentioned money. Kept saying, we'll give you a contract, he signed a contract, and if you do well in 6 weeks' time, I did it with Pat Nevin, I've done it with all the players, you'll get a brand new contract. And I went, but how much are you going to give me then to start with? Don't worry about that, son, we'll sort all that out. You sign this blank contract. And I'm like, yeah, right. So this went on for a bit, so I'm not going to sign for Chelsea. I end up going to Sheffield Wednesday just for talks. I go for talks. As we drive into Sheffield, most of you have been to Sheffield, as you come off the motorway, there's like all you can see is smoke. So I pull over and I say to the missus, if you think we live in here, you're mad. We go in, we're going to have the conversation, get out. Go in, my missus goes out house hunting with Howard Wilkins's wife, and I knew Howard from doing the 21s. So I've got my lad with me. My little lad carries the ball all the time. He's 3 years of age, he's got a ball all the time. They're negotiating. These agents that were doing the deal in Switzerland, they get involved in the deal. This is the first time I deal with agents, and they're negotiating the figures, and it does sound, it's a lot of money. I'm sitting there and I'm getting bored. Where's my lad? So I'm saying, well, anyone see a little kid? Oh yeah, he's out on the pitch. I go out on the pitch. Howard Wilkinson is showing my lad how to score goals at the Cobb, doing the pre-Ravanelli. So they're celebrating. I'm standing there saying, I'll have that geezer. All this is going on, and I'm his record signing. He's busy looking after my lad. I'll have him all day. 3 days later, I'm running around Uden Valley because I said to him, well, I don't really do all that 5 mile running and that. I mean, like, the way I'm built, I can't run 200 metres, that's me done. Don't worry, I know you black lads don't do that. 3 days later, I'm running around Uden Valley, 5 miles, 5 miles, 5 miles. And then I thought, made a bit of a boo-boo, big man.
So 36 games, 7 goals at Sheff, then you moved to your beloved Villa.
Yeah.
You're a boyhood supporter, and you loved that. How was that? That must have been the most special time of your career.
It was not the most special. It was something for my family. They wanted us to do that. They wanted me to play for Villa. When I was a kid, Villa came in for me, but I'd already agreed to go to Coventry. And then when I was 21, they was on about signing me as an understudy to Peter With. But I'm playing regularly in the team, and I'm like, I ain't too sure about that. But to be honest, if they'd have come in and agreed the fee, I probably would have gone. So the third time lucky, they want to sign me. I'm playing for Sheffield Wednesday. Final game at Hillsborough. We come off the pitch, and Ron Wiley, who signed me at West Brom for that Threepence a week, he's the assistant manager at Aston Villa. So as we're going up the tunnel, I've stayed to give the fans a little ripple and all that. As I'm walking up the tunnel, Ron's hovering around. So he goes, big man, yeah. He says, would you come to Villa? So I went, like a shot. So that was the conversation. Howard Wilkins is at the top of the dugout at tunnel. He says, you, get in here now. So he said, what are you talking to him about? I says, I've known him since I was 14, he's my coach. So, I don't think anything else about it. Now, Howard decides that they want to sign me. I end up having a conversation with him. Villa come in for me. Ron Wiley said, and Doug Ellis, we had the conversation at Doug's house. And I sat there, and I remember sitting there, and there's no manager. So he's talking, he's going, well, we can give you this, we can give you that. And the contract they offered me, they said it was the easiest deal they ever done, because they offered me like threepence a week, and I went, yeah, right, I'll sign. So I signed for Aston Villa. It wasn't all about money, I just wanted to play for Aston Villa. And as luck would have it, that year we got relegated. So, and I got the injury that nearly ruined my career, so it didn't quite work out, to start with.
Oh, wow. Do you know what? It's so fascinating. I mean, you go on to play for Watford, Palace, as we mentioned, QPR, Cardiff. You played 61 games, 9 against Northampton. I mean, in a game, nearly 600 goals. Oh, sorry, games and 153 goals. Yeah, that would have been nice. But you've written an absolutely incredible book, Don't Believe a Word, which you dedicated to Thin Lizzy, the band back in the day. I mean, that is an absolutely captivating read. Let's just quickly touch on that.
When I was 19 or 18, like Mark Haitley, myself, Danny Thomas, all our girlfriends, I never listened to rock music or any kind. I listened to a bit of ska and a lot of blues and soul and all that. Like, I ain't having all this like guitar malarkey. Anyway, they taught me to go to this concert. Go to the concert. As I walk in, we go up the steps and that. There's these lads. There's two lads sitting there. So I go past them. I sit down. This bloke comes up to me and he goes, "Oi, you're in my effing seat." And I went, "Look, mate, I do apologise for me in your seat, but if you talk to me again, like, I'll knock you out." As it turns out, we end up sitting next to each other. So I'm sitting there thinking, he's going to club me any second, like, sitting there waiting for it to happen and that. And then all of a sudden, everything goes black. Then the light comes on, and there's this one black man in the middle of the stage with a bass guitar, and he's got the most beautiful afro you've ever seen. And, like, the tash and everything, like, he's all in leathers. And I'm like, it catches me attention. I'm like, ah. Then I hear him play, and this is Phil Lynott, Thin Lizzy. And, like, I say, like, if I'm going to be a footballer, I'm going to be that man. And that was it. Then I listened to, I like the music anyway, it just got me into it. Listen to all his stuff, plus I love the fact he lived life. They say give the ball a kick. He lived it like it was, every minute was his last. And I thought, I'm having that all day. And so, yeah, when I got a chance to do the book with Bill Howell, because Bill had been driving me mad for 5 years. "Big man, you got to write a book." I'm like, "BA, I've known Bill for 20 years. Write a book." Not interested at all. And in the end, we'd had a drink one day, and I remember one of the lads saying, "Tomo can't write a book because it's all filth." And I don't know how he got that impression on me, because, you know, I was shocked. But in the end, me and Bill, I sat down, had a drink one day, and we started talking, give me a dictaphone, just started telling stories. He started putting it all together, and then lockdown happened, and I had a lot of time on my hands. He kept sending me chapters, and I kept crossing loads off. I said, "You can't put that in, you can't put that in." But in the end, it come together. I'm not precious about anything. It don't bother me. 2 days after the book comes out, or 3 days, I get a phone call from a guy called John Homer, who's the Albion Supporters Club chairman. He rings me, he says, "Big man, I've just read your book." I went, "What are you about, read it?" I said, "You only come out on Tuesday." I said, "So it's either the Beano or the best bit of writing you've ever read, like." And he went, "Well, it ain't the effing Beano." Put the phone down. Rings me back another day, he says, "Listen, I've read it again." He says, "It's really moving, it's touching, it's really good. It encapsulates what you're about." So I'm like, "Oh, you like it then?" That's the first thing I've been precious about in my life, apart from my kids and all that. But yeah, the book covers my career, the games, fallout with managers, and it covers the bits after my career as well. And how I did bits of agency work, I've done bits of everything, like. But the one thing I did learn, you got to enjoy every minute, because you never know when it's going to end.
It goes by so fast.
On that, John, that you played the late 70s, all through the 80s and into the 90s.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, all over the decades, and many challenging issues that we're dealing with today.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid at Coventry, it was about my 4th or 5th game, and it was on my birthday, and we played Ipswich. We ended up drawing 1-1. I scored the goal. Now, I don't realise until after the game, but there's a guy called Robert Ralph who wouldn't sell his house to Asian family, and he became really well famous in around Leamington area. I don't realise, but there's a demonstration, and he's basically saying, "Boo the black player because he's a tool of the Jews." Now, I'm getting ready for the game. I've no idea it is. There's another demonstration basically to protect the black player and all that. Now, imagine I'm in the middle of this, but I've no idea what's going on. My mum and dad park up in the directors, and they walk through, like, geezers handing out these leaflets, and the leaflet out, goes like that. My mum, typical West Indian woman, something for nothing. "Oh, hello," grabs it. She realises what it's all about. The bloke's like that. He realises she's a black lady. He's trying to pull it back. She clocks what it is. She lets off one with the umbrella, lets him have one. My old man's killing himself laughing. The security come and part them, and the newspapers get hold of it, and they do an article, and they called me Dazzler at the time, and they said, "Oh yeah, Dazzler socks are racist because I scored the goal." But that's the first time I had any real dealing with mass, like, racism. But I always thought, when I was a kid, there was a lad called Albert Johannesson who played left wing for Leeds. So you imagine a black kid in an all-white kit, and he was a silky winger. great ability. A lot a Johnny Sale type, if you know what I mean. That sort of player. Beat players, get crosses over and all that game. So I think when I start playing, because there was Clyde Best after that, Adi Coker, there was John Charles, I think, played for West Ham. But there's the odd black player, then Chidozie and Cyril and Brendan. So I'm thinking by the time I burst on the scene, all the abuse I get is nothing compared to what black players suffered 10 years before. So in that respect, I never let it bother me too much. But now when I see what's happening 30 years further on, 40 years further on, it's almost as if nothing's really changed. The other day, Zaha got some serious abuse from a Villa fan, and they put it on Twitter and that. And I remember reading it and going, that's disgusting. And I think I said something like, but he wouldn't say it to his face. But then they find out it's a 13-year-old boy from a place called Chemsey Wood in Birmingham, which is a notorious area. So therefore, it doesn't seem to change. It's easier to do now. It's easier to give people abuse and that, but it doesn't seem to have changed. And you think, well, it must be less abusive or less virulent than it was, but...
Yeah, I was going to touch on that with you because obviously you came through an era where it was really prevalent, it was really bad. And then obviously with the George Floyd movement and taking a knee, how you feel about that, and what do you see now? Because I was watching the Millwall game the other day, and every now and then there's something that strikes a chord with me when I watch Elise and Eze. And I think back and I think 35 years ago I was getting that same abuse from the Millwall fans, myself, Wrighty, Brighty, Shawsey. And it just made me really sad to still see that was still going on.
I think that most of us are born here. This is our country. We played here, and so if we play a bad game of football, we expect to get abused for it. Like certain things, you expect to get a bit of stick, but you shouldn't get stick for walking on the pitch, regardless of if they don't like the shirt you're wearing. Fair enough, but your colour, it should be irrelevant. It should be if you're a good player, a bad player, you have a good game, a bad game. That's how you should be judged. I was told, walk across the white lines, you are judged. No one gives a monkeys if you've argued with your missus or whatever. They judge you on your performance. So your colour should be irrelevant. The Black Lives Matter thing, when it started, I thought, great. When they took the knee, fantastic. I think Les said the same thing. A year further on, it seems to have lost its for effect nowadays. I think Zaha said, I'm not going to take a knee for anybody anymore. Yeah. Millwall fans will not accept
as well, said a similar thing.
And rightly so. At the end of the day, they made the point. I just think that the more you do it, it dilutes the message now. Like when they first did it, after restart, as they call it, it was powerful. And I thought they'll do it to the end of the season. The fact we're still doing it, then I know what they're trying to do. I know they're saying they want to provoke conversation and all that, but that's all that happens is conversation. Nothing ever changes because the die-hard people who still feel the same way ain't going to change. It's all about education. If you're educated, like most of us grew up with black people. Now, most of you grew up with black people. Then you realise they're either knobs or they're good fellas or whatever. It's got irrelevant to do with the skin colour. It's the person. The person is a nice person who's a bad person. Their colour should be irrelevant.
Tony, you made a great point that you thought, a lot of guys, maybe white guys, will sort of have black players on their home team, but then they'll abuse away players. I've heard guys say, I'm not racist, I've got a black friend, but they'll go to football and be racist.
I grew up watching Millwall as a kid in the 70s, and Garry, I talked to off air about it, two players, Trevor Lee and Phil Walker, who played for Millwall. Millwall fans loved them. Now, but that was because they were their own. Yeah. And it seemed to be, well, we're okay if we can do it to our own players. It's okay we can abuse the away players. But Georgie Lawrence, who played for Millwall as well, fans loved him. And it's a strange thing, because I'm an ex-Millwall player, so I know where you're both coming from. When you're talking Crystal Palace, I know what's going to be said and shouted at the opposing players. But it seems like we want to be racist against the away players, but we don't want to be racist against our players, which is a really weird thing for a black player who plays for Millwall.
Yeah, it's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
We could be here for hours. Just quickly, out of all those top strikers you played with, who was your favourite to play with?
I'd have to say Cyril Regis, because he basically coached me through 18 months where I scored an awful lot of goals. I learnt how to be calm at the right time. I'd have to say him, but I played with Ian Wright, Les Ferdinand, Mark Bright, who was the most intelligent centre forward I think I played with. I hate Mark Hateley
because he'll have a go. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Alan McAnally's my best mate. Graham Taylor brought him to replace me. We ended up becoming best mates and still my best mate now. So Macca, I'm going to put him. Macca's up there as well.
And favourite manager that you?
Oh, good question.
I was asked the other day, and I said Gordon Milne because he's my first ever manager, or Steve Coppell because I just lost the love of football a bit, and Steve Coppell gave it back to me, and I managed to get another 7 years out of the game.
Great.
So
Fantastic. We're going to take a quick break, and then afterwards we're going to come and talk everything Premier League, and then we're going to have the absolutely adorable Richard Keys will be coming on as well to give us an insight what's happening in football right now. Join us again. Welcome back to PUBCAST, and so much to talk about. Now, I talk about this guy as royalty in the presenting world. I started working back in '92 when Sky and the Premier League started. I was working with Richard Keys and Andy Gray on Sky Sports. Very privileged when I was out injured. We're so lucky. Richard Keys is going to join us again from Doha. And of course, you actually played with Andy Gray back at West Brom for a little while, didn't you?
No, he went to West Brom after. I went to Aston Villa, and Andy was brought back for the second time.
Right.
But he had a bad knee by then, but what a footballer he was, what a man.
What a footballer. And Andy, I'm sorry, Richard, great of you to join us. And what do you remember of this proper Coventry legend?
Listen, I played with Andy Gray as well at the Singapore Cricket Ground, and we beat the locals by 2-0. Scorer of the first goal with a cunning little pass from a sort of Beardsley-like ball through. As regards the legend that is Garry Thompson, I genuinely, and I'm serious now, I just wish we'd been able to hold on to him a whole lot longer. He won't share those sentiments, I'm quite sure. But I wish we had, because that was quite a two, Thompson and Hateley. That really was. That was a really good side we had back then. That's and then sadly, everybody came and poached them, and that was the end of that. But proper lad, Tomo, really good guy. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we lost him to West Brom. Coventry seemed to lose all our best players to Villa and West Brom. It's very sad, but hopefully... There's the odd exception, John. There's the odd exception. You left us as well, and that really wasn't too much of a problem.
You set yourself up there, John, didn't you?
Richard, but we must talk seriously. You know, what are you making of what's happening in the Premier League now with the COVID situation and games called off left, right, and centre? It's just a farce, isn't it? Yeah, John. If a team has a number of COVID positives, and genuinely as a result of the issue that is the pandemic, fine, I understand that. But if you're Arsenal and you've got one COVID case, you've got a couple of boys away at AFCON, you've sent 2 out on loan in the week that you've asked for your postponement, and one on the Monday morning after the weekend when you've called the game off. You've got Granit Xhaka suspended through his own stupidity once again. I don't get that at all. I think that they've been taking the mickey. And I think they're not alone. One or two more have as well. I mean, fair play to Manchester City. There was criticism of Guardiola and his team last week. Oh, they're only top because of COVID problems elsewhere. No, they've played on. And I know also that people will say, well, so they should. They've got a big squad and it's possible. But then look at Leeds going to West Ham. Fantastic. Jack Harrison's hat-trick. I mean, they lost 2 in the first half. They've barely got enough players to put on the bench. But they played on and they got their reward for doing so. And I don't understand, John. There may be other reasons that we're unaware of, all of us, as to why the games have been postponed that have. But it does seem, with the information we've got, that 1 or 2 clubs have been taking the mickey.
I want to ask you, Richard, because I don't understand why the Premier League have been so weak as regards to their actions of letting clubs, nearly to a man, every team that seems to ask for a game called off, they're bending over backwards. Why are they doing that? I
don't know, Cass, and I'm with you on that totally. I mean, Burnley have lost. Burnley, they've only played about 4 games, haven't they? They'll be playing all the way through until July at this rate. Not all, of course, of their own volition and their own issues, but I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, the one thing I always say when managers particularly talk about scheduling and they talk about player fatigue and too many games at one time, let's never forget that Richard Masters works for the 20 shareholders, the current 20 that make up a Premier League. He doesn't work on behalf of, he's not there telling them what should be happening. So the power is always with the football clubs. They have it ultimately within their gift to schedule and decide should games go ahead or otherwise. So I'm lost like you as to why we've lost so many games and really what the formula is. I mean, I thought it was if you have 13 fit players plus a goalkeeper, and that's all we used to have at Coventry every week. Oh, and John, of course. Then you play the game.
He's taking some, isn't he? There you go. Fair play.
Sorry, John. Sorry.
Do you know what? I mean, we're finding it very hard here to know what to make of it.
I saw a stat, and it said there was something like 30 positive tests out of 2,000 or 3,000. You have to check that stat, but that just shows how ridiculous it is. There's no reason to call games off. How did Cass get his chance? You get your chance. Players got injured. You got your opportunity. Now, all of a sudden, players get injured or whatever. They go, oh, well, AFCON. They knew the AFCON was happening, like. COVID, fair enough. Yeah. But everything else, injuries shouldn't enter into it. They're Arsenal letting players go on loan and still calling games off. Yeah. Outrageous.
I mean, I'm with you, Tom. I think I'm right in saying that on Friday night, Arsenal's under-23s played. So explain that. You know, if they've got fit players to fulfil an under-23 fixture on the Friday night, then they've got enough players around the football club to play through Saturday or Sunday, whenever that game was scheduled. Sunday, wasn't it? The North London derby. I mean, it's nonsense. And again, I couldn't agree more. As a young player, surely that's the opportunity you're looking for, that senior men aren't available, and you grab the chance that you're given.
As a young kid, so where's your pathway now? Because you look at the club, you think this is opportunity now, I'll get my chance. And all of a sudden they call the game off, so you now know there's no chance of you getting near the first team, like, so you might as well go out on loan or go somewhere else.
Because that is the fast of the under-23s, because Burnley had an under-23s game last night, playing against Wolves, and as you're saying, Richard, Arsenal had one, so surely if you've got an under-23s and you can fulfil that fixture, why can't that team go, or half of them, go and play in the first team?
I'm playing in the old Division 3. I got my debut at Burnley away because the 3 most experienced centre-forwards were injured. And that was in Division 3. You're not talking Premier League with the huge squads. So again, it's going back to, how does this make sense?
Who were they, Cass? Who were the 3 centre-forwards?
There was Kenny Price, Trevor Lee, Mark Weatherly. Wow. Do you remember all of them, Richard? If you do, you're...
Yeah, I do, and I would tell you this, Cascarino and Sheringham, better by some distance.
Listen, we could spend all day. You know, thanks for the guys for joining us. Didn't even have question time today, but I've been John Salako, he's been Tony Cascarino and Garry Thompson. Let's have a round of applause. What a hell of a legend. Absolute legend. Can listen to him all day. Looking forward to having a couple of pints with him and catching up. Thanks for joining us, and join us again. Take care of yourselves.